Nature Academy, a brighter future for you and me. It's about growing, it's about nature, it's about learning, it's about sowing, it's about soil, gentle toil, it's about flowers, bees and trees, and they're free. It's organic, no need to panic. It's kind to the animals, us and the planet. Growing Nature Academy, a brighter future for you and me. Growing Nature Academy, a greener future for you and me. A brighter future for you and me.
Thank you, Growing Nature Academy.
Welcome to Veganic Gardeners Question Time. And what a joyful, uplifting bit of music that was, even if I say so myself. Wow, yes, indeed. We've got a great show for you today with an international panel and questions coming in from all over the world as well. And don't forget, if you're watching this live, you can send your questions in. Now, the Vegan Organic Network since 1996 has been promoting a wonderful way to bring about abundance, health, and healing for us, animals, and the planet. We want clean rivers. We want clean oceans. We want healthy soil. We want healthy food and healthy people for everyone. And you can do it in a veganic way. Well, I tell you what, we have got a fantastic show today. We really do. Vegan Organic Network is a wonderful way to connect people. Like many of our panelists are doing incredible work, and we're bringing together this knowledge. It's a network of like-minded people, and you can get on board as well. Go to veganorganic.net, the fantastic website of the Vegan Organic Network, and wonderful initiatives such as the Von Map. You can join it as a producer, as a grower, or just as a supporter. You might want your food grown without chemical inputs or animal inputs, like I do, like our panel do, and like increasingly millions of people do as well. There's wonderful other initiatives like the Growing Nature Academy that you just heard that song from. See how happy those kids were. Growing food veganically. Don't panic. It's veganic, as we say. Well, I tell you what, enough from me, Giles Bryant, your host today. I'd like to introduce some fantastic members of our panel joining us, as I say, from around the world. And first up, dear friend of the show, it's Meg Kelly. Now, Meg is an avid veganic gardener. She co-founded the Veganic Agricultural Network in 2008 and teaches the Learn Veganic online gardening course, which is brilliant. Meg organizes the Veganic Summit, which is a free 3-day online event. Thousands of people have joined it, and runs the incredible Learn Veganic, which is a great range of free veganic resources. Meg, how are you?
I'm doing great, Giles. How are you today?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. I'm feeling good. I tell you what, we've got some tricky questions, and I was so pleased when I heard that you. I mean, just tell the viewers a little bit about the journey, how you've been here today.
Well, we had a big storm in Canada a couple of nights ago, so I lost my electricity and wasn't sure whether I'd be able to be here today. But luckily, our electricity came back, and I'm happy to be here. And the gardens definitely got a major watering during that storm. Luckily, the plants held up pretty well, even with the high winds.
Brilliant. And how are things at Learn Veganic?
Things are going great at Learn Veganic. We're just getting things ready for our next Veganic Summit that's going to be happening next November. And we also have our spring and summer session of the Learn Veganic course that people are still welcome to sign up for at learnveganic.com.
Yeah, it is a fantastic course, everyone. And do check out the amazing resources that Meg and the team have put together. So useful. And we're going to get into some of your fantastic knowledge. So thank you, Meg. We'll hear from you in a minute. And next up, our next panelist, again, great friend of the show. When I got sent some of these questions, and I thought we're going to need Pierce on for this. You know, we're going to need Meg on for this one. Piers Warren is a conservationist, a filmmaker, an author, and a very keen grower of organic fruit and veg. He's the founder of Wild Eye, the International School of Wildlife Filmmaking, and the author of many, many fantastic books, including How to Store Your Garden Produce. And of course, the co-author of The Vegan Cook and Gardener is pierswarren.co.uk. And here he is, the man himself. Piers, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks. And this is my absolute favorite time of the year, because now when I go out into the garden, there are so many things to choose from. So when it comes to wondering what I'm going to have for my dinner each evening, I'm not looking in the freezer or anything like that. I'm just looking in the garden, getting a selection of things, and then there are so many different things you can do with that. It's great. So I only half an hour ago, I was eating things picked straight from the garden. Brilliant.
It's just absolutely amazing. You know, the Vegan Organic Network, recently we were at the Sacred Earth Gathering near Glastonbury at the Crops Not Shops initiative. And what an amazing idea that is. Let's have crops rather than shops owned by hedge funds and big multinationals. You know, let's actually grow it ourselves. And you are a living embodiment. And may I say, Pierce, you're looking fantastic. I think you're getting younger.
Well, it's all that fresh produce and working outdoors that does it.
Absolutely. It is the route to a healthy, wonderful life. Well, thank you, Pierce. We're going to hear back from you in a minute when these questions come up. Now, Maestro, I'm not sure, is Keith online? Because our dear friend Keith Robertson from Scotland, from Bonnie, Scotland, the Isle of Arran there, as Meg was saying, you know, sometimes the greatest ideas that we have, the best laid plans of mice and men, go a little awry with technical problems. So I presume that Keith isn't with us yet, but he will. Hopefully he'll be with us soon. Keith Robinson. I just want to give Keith a little promo anyway. It's veganherbal.com. Keith is the founder of the Scottish School of Herbal Medicine at the island of Arran. It's established in the year 2000 and is run on veganic principles and organic philosophy. It's a vegan retreat centre dedicated to researching planetary health, herbal treatments, diet, cooking, raw food, and hands-on green living. So hopefully Keith will be with us, but maybe he's had a few technical problems. Does happen from time to time. So in the meantime, it's going to be the three musketeers of myself, Meg and Pierce, I think, trying to answer some of these fantastic questions. So Dan Graham is the maestro. He is the man behind the scenes. Of course, he runs the Vegan Organic Network, a hero to us all. Thank you, Dan. And we have got some fantastic questions. And as Dan mentioned, if you're watching this live, you can send your questions in and we'll do our best to answer them. Over to you, maestro. What's the first question we've got? Here we go. Well, this is from Alex. And Alex says, well, most of my local growers are using manure hotbeds. I'm trying to work out a vegan alternative. Are there solar powered options, or is it just about controlling compost? He's growing on a small plot and he's also got a polytunnel. So what advice have we got, panel, for Alex? Rather than the old school method of using the old hotbed with the old manure.
Now, I'm personally a fan of cold composting myself, so I don't have as much experience with hot composting. I enjoy cold composting because we don't have to do as much management. We don't have to turn it as much. We can just be patient and it will break down. But if you would like to do hotter composting, one thing that you can do is you can increase the amount of nitrogen-rich materials in your compost. But if you do that, you're going to have to keep a close eye on the temperature and make sure that you're turning more regularly. Because one thing that can happen when your compost gets really hot is because you've got all of those microorganisms with all of that activity, they can end up using up the oxygen that's in the pile. And if they use up all the oxygen, your pile can go anaerobic, and we don't want an anaerobic pile. So that's my main recommendation, is that if you are doing hot composting, just increase your nitrogen-rich materials compared to your usual amounts. Make sure that you're turning it a lot. Keep an eye on that temperature, and that should help. But I'll let Pierce jump in here because maybe Pierce has some other tips and tricks.
Yeah, well, Alex mentions having a polytunnel and asks if there are any other ways of using heat from the sun, for example. And what I'd like to just suggest is to use a climate battery. Now, some years ago, I bought this book, which is called The Forest Garden Greenhouse by Jerome Ozentowski. And in it, he describes how he uses so-called climate batteries to regulate the temperature of polytunnels and greenhouses and things like that. Basically, what you do is you bury deep into the soil underneath the polytunnel a wide pipe just full of air, and the ends of the pipe come up to the surface at either end of the polytunnel. And then you have an air fan, just a simple air fan that will run off a little solar charged battery. And basically what happens is this fan is continuously going 24 hours a day. So during the day, when the sun is heating up the polytunnel, the fan will drive that warm air through this long pipe, which snakes around under the soil of the polytunnel, and it will warm that soil. And then during the night, when it's colder, the soil, which is now warmed from the day, will continue to heat the air in that pipe, and the little air fan will then push warmer air back into the polytunnel. So it stops it overheating during the day and it keeps it warm during the night. Such a simple idea, and doesn't use any fuel, because it's the only thing that needs to have any energy is this little low-powered fan which can run off a battery. So it's a great way of regulating temperature, and he describes it in great detail in this book. So I really recommend this book. And also he shows pictures of it, for example, where people are growing tropical food in their greenhouse while there's snow on the ground outside. It's that effective. So
Wow.
that's my tip for the day.
Awesome. That is good. So, Alex, there we go. Dig yourself a pipe, my friend. Maestro, what do we have next? Now, this is Namratha from Bangalore in India, and a lovely lady who's contacted us recently. She's got a large farm, and in the past, we've had a massive problem with slugs and snails, and they had to use they decided to use chemical chalk-like pellets. They collected 5 to 7 kilos per day of the dead slugs that they disposed of. Then they had to borrow some chickens to solve the problem. What can we do now that they're a veganic farm? And Namratha is on the Von map, so do check out the project there. We often get these questions, don't we, guys, about slugs, but 5 to 7 kilos in a night. I mean, I don't like to kill any of God's creatures, but they obviously had to. What could they do, guys? Meg, over to you.
One. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, over to you, Meg. Over to you.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, it's a tough one because this is one of the main things that people struggle with, whether their garden is veganic or not veganic. If we live in climates, especially climates that are a little bit more humid, slugs can be a frequent problem. One thing that I actually found improved in my garden is I actually used to have mulches like leaves and straw and things like that. And I found that the slugs really liked to live in those environments. When I actually switched over to having a bit more of a green cover in my garden of young green plants, I had less problems with slugs because they didn't have as many places to live and they had a lot more things to eat. On my end, I did that by accident. One year, I just had a whole bunch of brassica plants that went to seed. I kind of threw the seeds everywhere. The next spring, there's just kind of this carpet of brassica plants in my garden. But I realized that by having a bit more of a living mulch rather than kind of plant residues as mulch, I think that the slugs simply had a lot more things to munch on and they were more likely to leave my plants alone. A couple of other things that I'll just mention. I mean, of course, with that method, you can do it in a much more intentional way with a cover crop that will serve other purposes. But if you're going to be handpicking slugs, they really love to come out at night. So if you go out at night with a headlamp, you can handpick them more easily. You can also put things like wooden boards or like half grapefruits or things like that in your farm or garden, and they'll tend to congregate under them. So it's a way that you can kind of have a way to kind of get them to go into one place where then you could then move that wooden board away the next morning. And you can look into sacrificial plants. There's some things like hostas that they like to eat that you might be able to kind of put in one area and hope that they'll go over there a little bit more. And I'll also mention that if you're having slug issues, it's best to avoid watering at night. Oftentimes, people recommend watering at night for the sake of the plants, because if you water at night, there's going to be a lot less evaporation of the water. So that water is really going to go down deeper into the soil and water your plants better, and the water is really going to be used more efficiently. But when the soil's moist at night, slugs really like that, and and they really just like coming out into that environment. So if you're having issues and you water, I'd suggest watering in the morning so that by the time the evening comes around, your soil is dry.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Piers, obviously, our friend from India has got, I mean, I've just got a garden. She seems to have a farm, and 5 to 7 kg per night of the little beggars. I mean, any other suggestions about slugs, just for her or just generally?
Yeah, I mean, if she says she's picking several kgs of slugs and snails every morning, dead ones. So as Meg says, you may as well be collecting that many in the evening, but of live ones, and then relocating them. But always make sure they go at least 100 meters away before you release them, because they do have some sort of homing capability, and they will come back if you just chuck them over the fence.
Yeah.
The other thing, of course, is to make sure that you're attracting wildlife that eats slugs and snails. So here in the UK, it's great to have things like hedgehogs and slowworms, various amphibians, things like that. And I'm sure there'll be equivalents in India.
Yeah, since we've put our pond in, it's definitely helped. I would say definitely helped with the toads. Although I've never seen a toad eat a slug, and I don't want to. Maestro, moving on swiftly, please. What is next? Oh, it's Stephen from Somerset. Well, we've just had the summer solstice, and Stephen's wondering, is he too late to put any vegetables in? What can he grow now? Piers, what could he put in? What could Stephen put in now?
Well, it's not too late at all, and there's still plenty of stuff that you can grow from seed. But in addition to that, if you go to any garden centre now, they'll have loads of young plants of all sorts of vegetables that have got a bit of a head start that you can put in the ground right now. But if you are growing from seed, then go for the things that grow quickly, like lettuces, salad leaves, Chinese cabbage, pak choi. Pak choi you can sow, through July and August. Turnips grow quickly, spring onions, all sorts of things like that. And even runner beans. You can sow runner bean seeds now and still get a late crop of those. So yeah, absolutely plenty still to do.
What about you, Meg? What would you be telling Stephen to plant?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest looking at the seed packages and looking at the days to maturity. So as Pierce mentioned, I mean, you can still get some plants that are already well established, but we are getting pretty late in the season if you want to get a harvest off of something like tomatoes or peppers. So if you find some that are well established at the garden center, maybe you could still get them in the ground now, but you can't really go much later than now. And even at the moment, it would be a little bit of a little bit limit for sure. But there's some plants, like as Pierce was mentioning, things like spinach and radish, they can have days to maturity like 40 days or something like that. And often with things like beans and peas and spinach and lettuce and radish and carrots, oftentimes we want to be planting them in succession every couple of weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks, because if we plant them all at once, at the first point in the season when we're able to plant them, then we get one big harvest all at once, and then sometimes the harvest is over. So it's actually just good practice to be planting some of these things in succession. So just, look at the seed packages. If you can find something that's got 40 days to maturity, 50 days, 55, 60, you might be just fine with that. And some of these plants, you can even be planting until August. I mean, you can plant something like baby bok choy, little tatsoi leaves, even spinach and things like that in August to be getting a fall harvest from them. So yeah, there's lots of things that you can plant. You just need to make sure you're not trying to do anything too ambitious. I wouldn't do anything like, cantaloupe or aubergines at this time of the season because it's getting a little bit late for them to produce.
Wonderful, wonderful advice. So let's keep going. We had some lettuce in the greenhouse, and it just came up early, and we were eating that fresh lettuce for like weeks. And I said to the old wife, "We've got to get some more in," you know. But anyway, I'm sure we'll get some more in at some point. Fortunately, there's lots of fresh greens, forageable greens, in the garden that we're having for free. Maestro, next question, please. It's Diana in Basingstoke. I was given loads of cucumber and courgette plants, which are doing really well. I'm going to have a glut. I'll give some away, but do you have any advice about preserving the summer's abundance? Well, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I've just ordered a book, which I'm thoroughly, it's not arrived yet. I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. It's called How to Store Your Garden Produce by Piers Warren. Piers, over to you first of all, my friend. What can Diana do?
Well, yeah, thanks for the plug. Funnily enough, here it is.
Yes.
The new edition of How to Store Your Garden Produce. And that's just come out this year. And although the title was first produced years ago, this is a brand new edition, and it's got full color photos throughout, with various recipes and techniques for just about everything you're going to want to grow in your garden or allotment. So it includes cucumbers and courgettes, of course, and I happen to have a glut of both of those myself. In fact, I've been eating cucumbers from the greenhouse since May.
Wow.
What a good start we've had to the year. So yeah, you just happen to have picked two of the things which are quite hard to store because of their high water content. And of course, cucumber, you wouldn't bother freezing it or anything like that because it would just turn to mush. But my suggestions for cucumber are, first of all, you can make cucumber jam, which I made myself last year, and it's very nice. You can also pickle cucumbers. And like gherkins, if you pick them small, you can pickle them whole and use them exactly the same way you would use a gherkin. Or if they're larger ones, you can slice them and then pickle them. And as for courgettes, again, you can pickle them in the same way. You can freeze courgettes. They go a little bit mushy, but if you're going to throw them in a stew or something like that, it's fine. So I would slice a courgette quite thickly, blanch it for 1 minute, and then freeze. But also you can use courgettes in other recipes, chutneys, for example, another way of preserving it. And you can even let some of them go bigger, more marrow sized, and then use the flesh in all sorts of other things like chutneys and accompaniments to various jams. For example, you can make a very nice marrow and apple jam. So all those things that I've just mentioned, all the recipes are in this book.
Yes.
Just to say that if you do look for this book, bear in mind that the earlier version is still for sale because they've still got some copies left. So just look out for the green cover because the earlier version doesn't have all the nice photos and doesn't have the updated text. So there you go.
Wonderful. Yeah, superb. So Meg, just on a slightly different topic, what would be your favorite thing to, if you were going to do something to it to harvest its goodness to have later in the year? Not necessarily cucumbers or courgettes.
Oh, we freeze so many things on our end, especially things like berries from our garden. That's our main go-to for things like berries and cherry tomatoes, is throwing them in the freezer and being done with it. We also have we turn our kale into kale chips, but we also do some fermenting. So as Pierce was mentioning, just fermenting cucumbers is one of the best ways that you can store them. And you actually end up getting some extra nutritional value. One thing I want to mention too, kind of not on the storage side of things, is just looking for new creative recipes that you can try with those cucumbers and zucchinis, courgettes, when they're in season. I think oftentimes when we have a glut, we kind of have our one or two favorite go-to recipes with those plants, and we're not sure what to do beyond that. I just had a couple of cucumbers that were going a bit funky, and I didn't want to eat them raw. I just threw them into some tacos, and I kind of, fried them up with all the other veggies like tomatoes and stuff, and they go fine in there. One thing I like to do with courgettes is to slice them really, really, really thin, long, thin strips, put some salt on them, and then they get wiggly. And then you can actually use that as lasagna noodles in raw lasagna. So I would just say too, when you've got, a big harvest of something, just go online and look for like 50 vegan recipes with courgette, and you can end up finding some really interesting stuff that we don't typically use them for.
Beautiful. And also the power of sharing. We were at the Crops Not Shops, and they're growing a massive amount of food there, this incredible vegan project, and they give half of it away to the poor people, to the people without fresh food, so they're growing a massive amount and they're selling it to keep the project going, and they're giving it away. We just had a quick question come up there from Dennis. We just addressed this very quickly. He says he's in the west of Ireland. Is it too late to plant carrots and peas? I mean, there we go. Thank you. Is it too late to plant outdoor carrots and peas? I'm just going to say do it. Over to you, panel. Just a quick one.
I'm also going to say do it. Again, you might want to take a look at how long to harvest on those seed packages. Some peas will be 20 days quicker than certain other types of peas. So you might want to look at that. But the nice thing about peas and carrots is they're both relatively cold tolerant. So if you start getting cooler temperatures in September, they're probably going to do fine with that. One of the bigger concerns is how well they're going to do just starting out the very beginning of their life in the heat of July, and that might be more of a challenge to them. So you might want to look at the temperatures up ahead, especially with those peas. You might want to consider if there's an area of your garden that actually is a little bit cooler than other areas. So sometimes we have certain microclimates in our gardens. For example, we might have a brick wall that's radiating a lot of heat. Well, that's a great place to put, something like tomato plants nearby, because they'll take advantage of that heat. Peas like things a little bit cooler, so that's why they're often grown in the springtime. So if you're trying them in the summer, I would just see, is there a slightly cooler part of your yard that you might be able to grow them in? They can also handle a bit of shade. I wouldn't go full shade with them, but they can handle a little bit. And carrots can take about 3 weeks to for the seeds to sprout. So especially with July weather and how it's going to be hot, you'll want to make sure that you're really keeping those watered, especially in that germination phase. One thing that some people do is they'll even put something like they'll water the carrot seeds well and put something like a wooden board over it, just to help keep that moisture in during that first week or 2 or 3 while they're starting to germinate.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Great advice there from Dennis. Maestro, what's our next question, please? Here we go. It's Jilly. I've been inspired by Vaughn's Growing Nature Academy. Well, yes, Jilly, me too. Absolutely. Now, I think this question was probably directed at Keith because he's our herbal expert. Can you recommend some herbs to plant at the entrance of our school? I tell you what, on Keith's behalf, I'm just going to cover this one, as we just have planted this fantastic large planter at the front of a local primary school. And I tell you what, it's wonderful to have some color, isn't it? Just beautiful to have some color. So we've got some lovely sage, and you get those lovely flowers coming from the sage, and some lavender. Lavender is such a beautiful spiritual presence, and it's so calming. So I think when the children are coming in, that's a lovely one as well. Rosemary, of course. Rosemary for remembrance. Well, that's going to help the children's brains. But whatever you can put in that's beautiful, maybe that's going to smell nice, some oregano, some thyme, just go for it, Jilly. Just do it. And if you want any advice, you just go to the Vaughan website and click on the Growing Nature Academy under the project section, and you'll get some more. Okay, Keith, I hope I did you justice. Maestro, where are we going next? Oh, where is it? Here we go. Oh, it's Noreen. How can I organically kill weeds growing in the middle of a farm road? I can hear them clunking under the car. Non-bio washing powder? Question mark. The road is about half a kilometre long. Okay, so Noreen lives on a farm track and she's driving down it, and I've had it as well. And you got the boom, 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 boom. What do we think, panel? I mean, she's suggesting non-bio washing powder. I mean, I'm just kind of not feeling good vibes from that myself. But what about your thoughts? Any ideas how we could help her? I mean, maybe a mower, maybe a lawnmower. You could run along and cut it down. But anything else?
I was also thinking cutting it down if that's an option, getting out some secateurs or something and going in there and cutting it down. But we don't really know much about what type of weeds they are. But, in general, if you keep cutting weeds down, they'll tend to lose some of their oomph over time.
Yes. Piers, what about you? What do you think Noreen can do with that half a kilometre long stretch?
Yeah, well, the tricky thing is the length of it. If it was a smaller area, there are various things we could suggest, and of course, pulling up by hand is one of the best things because you pull up the roots too. But half a kilometre, I don't know if I want to pull up weeds for that long. So yeah, mowing, strimming, just keep doing it, and they'll lose their vigor.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way, isn't it? If you can, Noreen, just get a friend with a mower, ride on mower, and that might be a nice joyful thing to do. And half a kilometre is not too long, is it really? And the journey of 1,000 miles, Noreen, it starts with one single cut with your secateurs, as Meg was saying. Maestro, where are we going next? Oh, here we go. Hold on a minute. The Lake Dark Cherry. Hi, panel. I came across some sea kale growing on the beach whilst I was in Anglesey recently. I know it's edible, but I wondered whether I should be concerned about the accumulation of heavy metals. Great question there. I ate some sea kale recently. Delicious. Absolutely delicious it was indeed. But we do have to be careful about where we are harvesting. And I would say, what was the sea like? Were you swimming in the sea? Were you concerned about the heavy metals going into you that way? Obviously, fish accumulate it. We're vegans. We're not eating the fish, but a lot of people have cod liver oil, and the liver is a detoxification organ. So if you're having cod liver oil from toxic seas, then you're just eating mercury, which is a crazy thing. Piers and Meg, what do you think about this issue?
I tend to be pretty wary about anything from the sea now because around the coast of the UK, for example, the pollution is pretty bad, and in some places raw sewage is still being dumped in the sea. And so although all seaweeds are edible, for example, I wouldn't eat seaweed now collected locally because you just don't know what's in it. And as well as sewage, of course, there are heavy metals and PCBs and all sorts of long-lasting nasty chemicals, and we don't really know what they're going to do to us, especially when they're combined. It's easy to test whether one particular chemical is toxic to a particular organism, but it's the combination, because there are so many possible combinations of these chemicals. It's really hard. So I'd be pretty wary. But of course, you can grow sea kale at home. I've done that myself, so maybe that's the way to go.
There we go. And Meg, how far are you from the ocean?
I'm not too far from the St. Lawrence Seaway, which is on its way to the ocean. But I mean, oftentimes with sea kale, it'll be growing on the sand. So I think there's kind of that question when we look at, was it in contact with water that might have sewage or things like that? There's that question too of how far up the coast was it? Because if it's farther up the coast and it's just, more on the sand line, my take is to any of the food we eat, we're not really sure if it's heavy metal content. I mean, even when we eat rice, at least here in North America, I mean, there's, issues with arsenic and things like that. So one of the things about something like sea kale is you don't want to over harvest it. You want to be very careful about not over harvesting it anyway. So in the spirit of not over harvesting, I personally wouldn't have any issue with if it, if it was up along the shore a bit farther, higher up away from the water, I wouldn't have any issue with taking a couple of leaves off or maybe rinsing them off and eating them. I feel like we're getting heavy metal content by doing things like being in cars or taking a walk near cars and things like that. So I don't think a piece of sea kale is going to be the biggest issue in our lives in that
I
regard.
would say just use your intuition there from the question coming in. You got to feel it. You got to feel what's right for you, and get back to that. Hemp is a very useful plant. It is. I mean, that's a statement. I don't know if it is. Do they farm what's that? Axiom seeds?
I'm not sure.
Anyone? Oh my God, the questions are coming in. What do you think about microplastic effects on soil? I mean, that's dreadful, isn't it? What do you think about the reduced nutrition in food now? I mean, stop bombarding us, person. We'll just cope with one at a time. That's why we need to have veganic. To answer your last question there, that's why we need to have these broad systems of veganic growing, so we can reboost the nutritional content of our soil again. That's such an absolutely important aspect of it all, and using some of these different things. And what do you think of hemp? Yes, absolutely. We need the hemp revolution. Maestro, next question, please. Here we go. It's not. Oh, I think we've had Noreen. She's back. Sorry, we go to question. Oh, here we go. What's your favorite summer recipe that use ingredients from your garden? Thank you, Carrie. An international audience indeed. Carrie from Florida. Okay, guys. Meg, what's your favorite? Over to you, ladies first.
All right. So when it's earlier in the season, like right now, I tend to basically have greens. I've got some mushrooms growing. I've got green onions. So when that's what I've got available in my garden, I typically turn it into miso soup. I know from a summer perspective, it's not the most summery recipe, but I find that very early season, it's one of those things where I can take a leaf of this and a little sprig of that and just combine them together, add a bit of miso, and it's so easy. And later in the summer, when we've got tomatoes and peppers and fresh beans from the garden, I really like to make things like enchiladas and burritos. And I just find that when I mix those ingredients together with some spices, it ends up being absolutely delicious.
Wonderful. Pierce, you've got several books all about this. So just give us one of your favorite summer recipes.
Okay, well, the first thing that came to mind is a broad bean risotto, because broad beans, usually we can get the first young ones available sometime in late May, and it's always the first thing that I do with them is pick them while the beans are still young and tender, and make a risotto with them, and that's always something I looked forward to. It's fabulous.
Oh, it's making me hungry. Look, I've got one for you, panel. Here we go. This is my summer drink. So what I do, I pick lemon balm and rosemary, and we grow lots of different varieties of mint. So I put all those in first in my glass. There we go. Thank you, Maestro. And then I put the ice cubes on top. Okay. And then what I've done, in the UK, we've got these CBD drinks called Trips, which are fantastic. You could use sparkling water. You could just use water. And we're making these like a virgin mojito, I suppose, but a supercharged one. Oh, my word. You could sell this in fine bars in London for 10 quid. Cheers, everyone. Here's to the veganic revolution. So a few summer recipes for you. Maestro, we're doing so well with these questions. All right, now this is Namratha. Now, we normally only let there be one question per person, but I put another one in, because this is quite a question. We've created a forest on our farm. We grow a variety of crops that has dense foliage, and it's attracted some wildlife. The rabbits, they've made their homes in the farm. They're damaging the crops. The rats and the squirrels are a constant problem eating ground crops, and they've now got an infestation of rats. The monkeys, we don't get them in Suffolk, but they visit occasionally, eating bananas, sweet corn, mangoes, and other fruits. Could you please suggest veganic-friendly solutions to manage these issues? Now, panel, I think this is possibly one of the most difficult questions that we've ever had. I mean, I used to live in India, but I wasn't farming there. So any ideas, guys, on a farm level scale to to deal with these animals veganically?
Again, I think it's the scale that's the problem, because normally I would say with animals like that, the best way is just to grow your crops within cages
Yeah.
that things like rabbits and squirrels can't get into. But difficult on a farm scale. There may be some kind of fencing around the perimeter that will help, certainly with some of the things like rabbits, for example, but of course not so good for the monkeys, which will climb anything. So maybe it's a case of protecting some of the crops that these animals most go for in cages, and grow some of the other stuff they don't like outside.
Yeah, how about you, Meg? You got any idea? I mean, obviously we can't do much about the monkeys. I don't think they were the main problem. I think it was, maybe the rats and the rabbits. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky that I haven't really experienced too many problems of this nature. We sometimes have some animals that come in. We'll sometimes have some gophers come in and grab a little something, or some squirrels that come in and grab a little something. One thing I would say is to think about what percentage of the crops are being affected. Sometimes we can have the impression that we're losing the majority of our crops, but if, for example, 10 or 20% of the crops are being affected and 80% of the crops are okay, at some point we can sometimes, accept that there's a certain amount of loss in the system and a certain amount of sharing with the ecosystem. As Pierce was mentioning, it's kind of the scale that is a bit tough, because with rabbits, oftentimes you can put up a fence about 1 meter high and dig it into the ground a bit, and that can help considerably, or putting cages over very specific crops. But it is harder to do that, as Pierce was mentioning, on a larger scale. In some cases, you might be able to find basically devices that might detract them or repel them. So there are some devices like sound scare devices that will just kind of make loud sounds in a bit of a random way. You can also, in some cases, get devices that will kind of spray the animals with water, like motion detector devices. For monkeys, I was reading that in some cases they might be repelled a bit by shiny objects hanging in the trees, like CDs or pieces of aluminum or things like that kind of catch the glint of the sun. So I would suggest looking into what other people are doing in your area too. I think sometimes there's local knowledge. So sometimes what we need to do is get local knowledge from other folks and then figure out which pieces of that local knowledge align with a vegan ethic. Sometimes people will tell us ideas that very much don't align with a vegan ethic, and someone else might have a great idea that does align. So I would also say to find out what local farmers are doing. And in some cases too, you might be able to plant other things that they like to eat. I'm just going to give an example here, which is completely different types of animals to the ones you have an issue with. But birds, for example, birds have a preference for certain types of native fruits that farmers don't tend to grow because humans don't eat those fruits. But if farmers only grow things like cherries and plums, then the birds will eat things like cherries and plums because the native foods that they actually like to eat aren't available. So you might want to look into, are there foods that these animals would typically eat as part of their natural diet that you might actually be able to plant on your farm that might get them to move away from your food crops and toward those kind of sacrificial crops?
Brilliant, absolutely. Well, just a few things to catch up with there. We just had a comment that came through about what about getting a dog. When we lived in India, there was an organic spice farm and they had cats, and I said, why have you got cats? And they said, well, they keep the scorpions out and the cobras out. And we may say, well, if we're strictly vegan, we don't want to have animals, following these veganic principles, but I don't want to get bitten by a scorpion or a cobra. So I could kind of stand that. And someone said, have you thought about getting a dog? I mean, each to their own. We just had a quick question fly up there, Maestro. I don't know if we can bring that back. Thank you, Maestro. A cherry tree doesn't seem overly happy. It's not flowering. The leaves are shriveling up with black fly. just wants to give it a boost. Susie wants to give it a boost. Any suggestions there? Boosting a cherry tree, Pierce.
Black fly does seem to be a problem actually this year. I know she mentions at the end of the year, but I've noticed at the moment a lot more black fly than usual, and on unusual crops as well. So you always find them on things like broad beans at this time of the year. But I've got other plants like courgettes, for example, absolutely covered in black fly. But in terms of giving this tree a boost, I would suggest some plant teas, like make your own nettle tea and comfrey tea, and water the tree once a week with those, and that will certainly give it a boost.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Meg? Give that tree lots of love.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to give a tree a boost in addition to the plant teas, you can add some compost around the tree. You can add some hay around that'll decompose and start adding nutrients within a few weeks. And long term, I mean, trees love soil that's built up through lignin breaking down. So kind of a long-term boost would be adding something like chipped branch wood around it, which short-term will not help at all, but long-term will improve the soil quality and give a boost eventually for future growth.
Wonderful. Well, I tell you what, panel, can you believe it? Oh, here we go. It's our dear friend. Can you go spirulina at home?
I'm not actually sure.
I've got no idea. But what I would say is you can get a very good, this is a good thing for the vegans now for high protein. You can get very clean, where they're growing it in very clean environments, the spirulina, chlorella. So look for those sources that are super organic sources of these things, because we don't necessarily want them, as we were talking about those heavy metals. Panel, can you believe we've come to the end of the show? And I'd just like to say that for the people that have sent in questions, and we do really appreciate it, keep sending them in as well to the website. If you didn't get your question answered this month, we'll come back next month. But I always like to finish off just with a final message. What's your final message? Just a 30-second message to the listeners, to the world. We'll start with you, Pierce.
I'd say don't forget that growing veganically is not just about your own health, although it will be great for that, but it's for the health of everyone else, for the whole planet.
Beautiful. Amen to that. And over to you, Meg.
I would just like to remind people just to cherish and enjoy the gardening season. For many of us from cooler climates, it's a bit of a short season. This is the time to really maximize your harvests, try new recipes, and put away some of those harvests so that you'll still be eating vegan organically in the winter too.
Beautiful. Absolutely. And I'd just like to thank everyone listening live as well for your questions. We do always do our best to kind of fit them in amongst the scheduled questions. So if you didn't get your question answered, go to veganorganic.net and just send an email with the question, and we will do our very best to answer them. Look, everyone, thank you so much on behalf of the fantastic panel. We just send our love to Keith as well. He wasn't able to make it today. So I hope you're well, Keith, and we'll get you on next month because he's a top guy. And thank you to the Vegan Organic Network. Thank you to Piers Warren. Thank you to Meg from Learn Veganic. Thank you to everyone out there. And I would just like to finish with a message. And it's a message that was in that song, really. Which is, vegan organic can heal the planet. On behalf of Von, thank you so much. It's planet friendly growing, everyone. Don't forget to sign up to the Von map. Don't forget to become a member of the Vegan Organic Network. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to have a bit more of my mojito. See you soon. Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot.